Welcome everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Autumn and we're going to do a little bit of a journal with me today and a chat about vulnerability because that's what's on my mind and it's sort of somewhat connected to my page. Just showing you here my cousin, and this is what I've been doing recently. I just sort of tried that whimsical style and it was really lovely to use up those stickers and try that out, but I've gone back now to just my more fun, semi-cute style. This is my Hobonichi A6, and it's because I'm in my groove, I needed more space, so I've migrated over to my cousin. However, I do really love this A6 style. I'm now using my A6 for planning, which is shock horror to me. Like, for someone who wasn't really a planner and more of a memory keeper person. But you can see here the style from that A6 that now I put into this cousin. So I'm carrying on with that today. So the page that I'm doing today it's sort of covering an injury that happened with my teen. But it actually happened the previous day, but I slightly got mixed up and I was thinking it was this day, but it was okay because I didn't write about it much the previous day. So I'm carrying on, and it did carry on into the 10th because I was dealing with it and bandaging it up and so on. And it was, I think, the day we went to the doctors. No, it was the weekend. That was it. Oh, that's right. We had to wait over the weekend to go to the doctors to see the nurse there. So that was a nuisance as well. So across the weekend. Anyway, so my teen is autistic and does struggle with processing what happens to his body and injuries and realizing that something needs to be taken care of and so on. So sometimes things like this happen and it's worse than it needed to have been, but it is what it is, and then we have to deal with it. I was also struggling emotionally over the weekend, and obviously this extra stress added to that. But I've been thinking about vulnerability. I've been thinking about my teen. I was actually cutting his hair. Okay, this is crazy, right? I'm cutting his hair. I'm standing over him with a pair of scissors, and suddenly he says, "Oh," looks down, and there's a pool of blood at his feet. Can you imagine? I'm like, where have I cut my child? And where is he bleeding from? This is crazy. But I realized he had just recently hit his toe. Oh, and he said to me when he hit his toe earlier, he said, "Oh, did you hear me say anything?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Yeah, I kept it in, even though it really hurt." Oh, and I'm just like, Alex, why is that something to be proud of? Anyway, so all the complications around that. But it's part of that thing of being vulnerable. It's just a really confusing thing for him. But what's interesting when we think about generational wounds and what we pass on to our kids and that sort of stuff, being vulnerable is something I've really struggled with, and I've I've been healing that over the last maybe 5 years or so. Hard to remember the exact times, but why is it hard to be vulnerable? I know that it comes down to being the person that has to look after yourself. When your parents pull away or aren't caring, then you feel you have to look after yourself. So, anyway, I don't want to get into a deep psychological thing today, but I'm just thinking about how hard it is to be vulnerable. And I think one of the things that has really, it's not one of the things that has drawn me, but I think it's one of the things that adds to the appeal of this journal community is that it has a very different vibe to the mixed media community. I feel like in the mixed media community, there's a lot more bigger personalities, whereas in the journal community, and they're both journaling, but in this diary planner community, there's a lot of people who are very vulnerable and put themselves out there and are dealing maybe with mental health issues or being introverts or being a bit shy. There's just a lot more of that around. And I'm a person who's absolutely not shy, but I do have a lot of inner vulnerability. And I think talking about our days or talking about the issues that we're going through, or even also about the joys in our life and things like that. Even and about the struggles that we have with finding the right planner, and all of that. I think just helps us be vulnerable, and so many different people are attracted to being YouTubers, and certainly the big personalities out there, the look at me, look at me. There are people who love to teach, like myself. I love to share and teach. And then there are also people who want connection, and that's a really, really big thing for me, to feel that what you're doing is worthwhile, that what you're sharing is worthwhile, and connecting with like-minded people who get you, who say, yeah, I understand having so many stickers. I understand what you're saying, or what you said makes sense, or it helped me, or whatever. And I think this planner community and journal community attracts a lot of those people. And those types of people, my people, the more vulnerable, the more shy, the more introverted, it takes a huge amount of being able to expose our vulnerability into the world. And there is a risk there. There's a risk of, the internet trolls and people making a comment about how you're doing something, and uh, I don't know what you're wearing, and I don't know, just people just do. They make comments. I know I was watching a video yesterday. I can't remember who it was, but she says in the video she's putting a her journal into a cover, and she says, "Yes, yes, I know somebody's going to tell me not to do it this way, but I'm going to do it my way, okay?" And I thought, good on her for saying that she's going to do it her way, but also it's a little bit sad that that's the way it is of the internet world, that somebody's going to have an opinion on how you should do something, and that you feel you have to stand up for yourself. But it's great that we can do that, and it's like I said, it's risky to be vulnerable, but then that's what vulnerability is. I know that if I probably watched a lot of Brené Brown, I would understand this vulnerability thing a little bit more. I know that it's her whole thing, but I've never really looked into her. I wasn't ready to be vulnerable at the time, I think, when she really became big and was on the scene. But that's probably a good one to go and watch and read. But yeah, I know that being vulnerable is about connecting. If you really want connection with people, it is about being vulnerable. If you have a wall up, which is the opposite of vulnerability, then you can't let people in. My biggest thing is asking for help. I feel so vulnerable asking for help. I feel so vulnerable at letting people know that things are going badly in my life, or things are wrong, or that I'm struggling. It's really hard for me. And it's not, and it's okay for it to be hard. It's not something like you just have to suddenly fix. The reason it's difficult, and this is, if it's difficult for you, then I get it, because the reason it's difficult is that in our past, we've not been allowed to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable has been way too risky. Like life and death risky is what it feels like. It sets that part of our brain off, that it feels like it's survival. And it was that for me. I couldn't rely on my parents. I had to look after myself, and I was doing that. My first job was at 15, and I haven't stopped working since. And it was I paid my way through university with 3 jobs. It was working hard, working hard, and I was fine doing that. Of course, you're fine. You find that strength in yourself. You become stoic. I've learned how stoicism is just not what I thought it was, and not something to look up to at all. It has its good moments, but good bits to take out of it. Yeah, there's everything has something good you can take out of it, but I found out stoicism was a way to hide, and it's actually being vulnerable is the way to be seen, to get help, to connect with other people. Oh, these are big lessons, and they're not going to be learned overnight. Obviously, hasn't. I'm in my 50s, and I'm still learning them and working on them. But they're important, and life has thrown curveballs in the last few years, like breaking my leg, and divorce, and a kid who's really, really struggling, that I've had to sort of allow myself being vulnerable, and at the same time having to sort of be really stoic or be really, the one in charge and competent. So it's a really, really difficult balance that I'm going through at the moment. It's like I have to be strong. I have to do this. I have to provide a roof over my family's head. I have to do this work. I have to be strong for my kid. I have to be emotionally strong and physically strong. And then at the same time, allow myself not to be, allow myself time for that self care. Wow, it's a tough balance. So if you're going through this balance, I get this. If you're trying to be vulnerable, I get this. But hang in there, hang in there, and it does come, and it's important for it to come. Well, it's not important, but it's better for it to come from our own choices than for life to make you vulnerable like it did for me. I was struggling so much with allowing myself to be vulnerable that, yeah, then I go and break my leg and spend 2 years healing from that. So that's not the best choice. If you can choose to be vulnerable and ask for help, or if it's not even asking for help, it's also admitting when a situation isn't working and being able to deal with it and being able to change it or let go or, just meet it head on. And I wasn't doing that with that. I was just trying to push through, push through. Yeah, that's stoicism again. And that's pushing through just doesn't work with life. Hanging in there, being courageous, doing what needs to be done is one thing. It's not the same as pushing through. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to chat about. And this page is coming along so lovely. I will put it in the description, the makers of some of these stickers, which are really, really cool, especially that lovely lady up there. And thank you for being here with me. Please like and subscribe. That really helps me. Put in a comment, just a hello. I always like to hear from you because that's the main thing that I'm here for is connection with other people and just feeling like we're not alone and we're in it together is it's important for all of us. And I know it's important for me, especially at a time in my life that I am sort of alone. So yeah, connection really matters and makes us feel that on days when things aren't going so well that other people going through this as well, and I can just reach out and say hi to a friend or uh, hear from the planner community and feel less alone, feel less like it's not doable, being vulnerable but not being helpless. Yeah, that's kind of like a big lesson. I'm still learning that it's not the same thing. It doesn't mean I'm helpless to ask for help. Yeah, that's a big learning, isn't it? And I'm hoping that I can pass that on to my kid now as well. Thank you so much for being here. I hope your day turns out okay. Been really lovely to be here with you. Bye for now.